The Sunday school lessons for December 10th, 2023 is The Faith of David and Facing Life with Confidence. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 31 through 37, verse 45, and verses 48 through 50. This is an audio reading of the lesson and the summary. The story continues, verses 31 through 32. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Verse 33, Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." Verses 34 through 35. But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it." Verses 36 through 37. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Verse 45, David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with a sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Verses 48 through 50. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. A brief summary. When Saul was publicly challenged by the Philistines' champion, Goliath, he shrank back in fear. David, on the other hand, was young and outwardly unimpressive. He looked more like the shepherd he was than like a mighty king. But God, who looks at the heart, chapter 16, verse 7, chose this new leader because of his faith and inner character. David was a man after God's own heart, chapter 13, verse 14. Unlike Saul's cowardice, David, who was still just a young man, was willing to confront Goliath with tremendous courage built on his trust in the Lord. Rather than rely on human means of protection like an armor, a sword, and so on, David was equipped only with his shepherd's gear, a staff, stones, and his sling. Most importantly, David put his trust in the Lord Almighty of the armies of Israel. Verse 45. While Saul cowered, David took a stand of faith in God's name, declaring that there is a God in Israel and that through his defeat of Goliath, all those assembled would know that the battle is the Lord's. What the great army of Israel would not attempt to do, this young shepherd did. He defeated Goliath, and the Philistines were defeated. Rather than a personal victory to gain his own prestige, David saw his defeat of Goliath as an act of faith, motivated by his zealous love for God. Thank you so much for listening. Join me soon for the next audio reading of the lesson and the summary.